So week 12 was kind of crazy because this was Thanksgiving week. All right, because the way we had family worked out, instead of having Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, we had Thanksgiving dinner the Saturday before that. And then we had leftovers Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I basically had Thanksgiving dinner. I think it was Friday also, 6 days in a row. So this should be an interesting weigh-in. But you know what? I absolutely don't care if I gained weight this week. It was fantastic. My wife made an absolutely incredible Salvadorian turkey dinner, a recipe that she got from her father, and it was the bomb. So yes, I don't care what I did this week, and I will get right back on it next week. Okay, everybody. As I said before, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian. I just want to give you guys my understanding of why calories in versus calories out does not work. Okay, so people are eating 2,000 calories a day. Here's our food. And the body is burning 2,000 calories a day. The whole reason people say that calories in versus calories out has to work is they all say, hey, the first law of thermodynamics says energy in equals energy out, so calories in has to equal calories out. That's why counting calories works. So we eat 2,000 calories, we burn 2,000 calories. Woohoo! Hey, everything works. All right. Now, what happens if we're eating 2,500 calories and we're burning 2,000? Okay, well then the extra 500 goes into fat. Well, that makes sense. Now let's talk about dieting. For the last 40 years, doctors, dietitians, weight loss companies, everybody has been telling us that all we have to do is eat a little less and move a little more. Boy, that sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Everybody says it because all calories are the same. You just eat a little less, exercise a little more. They say if you eat 500 calories a day less, and it doesn't really matter whether you're eating 500 less or whether you're exercising burning off 500 calories. If you're basically putting 500 less calories per day, you will lose about 1 pound per week. Wow, that just sounds, like I said, incredibly simple. But I got a crazy question for you, okay? If dieting was that simple, how come over the last 40 years, obesity has been doing this? Are you saying that just people can't understand the 500 calories or eating less and working out more? Or maybe they just don't have the willpower to eat less and work out more? Come on. There's got to be a little bit more to it than that, all right? So let's go a little more in depth about what's going on when we're eating, all right? There's really basically two energy sources for the body, sugar and fat. Protein, it's usually used for building things. Now, let's say that we don't have enough energy, then protein isn't actually used for energy. What happens is protein is then converted into sugar in the body, and then we use it for energy, okay? So the two energy sources, okay? Sugar and fat. So when we eat, our body breaks down the food, and we get a lot of sugar in the bloodstream. Now, the body doesn't like having a lot of sugar in the bloodstream, so what it does is it produces a hormone called insulin. And then insulin's job when it comes to eating is then it pulls that sugar out of the bloodstream and puts it into the cells to use. That's called the body having an insulin reaction to eating. Now, I got a crazy question for y'all. Who here absolutely believes in their heart, and I want to see a show of hands, who here believes that when you eat 100 calories of ice cream, it has the same effect on the body as eating 100 calories of broccoli? Come on now, come on. Is there anybody out there who truly believes that? Because if just eating a little less and working out a little more is all that matters, then all calories should be the same, right? Absolutely not. So I talked about when we eat, there's an insulin reaction. The thing is, 100 calories of broccoli has a different insulin reaction as 100 calories of ice cream. The ice cream has a much higher insulin reaction. Now, why is that important? So when we're taking in food, when we're eating, the body says, oh, we have energy coming in. There's no reason to burn fat. So insulin is actually called our fat storage hormone. So when insulin is high, we're in fat storage mode. And when insulin is low, we're in fat burning mode. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on with insulin in the body throughout the day while we're eating. Okay, that means we need a different graph, okay? Okay, this chart will work much better for us. So what we're gonna do, like I said, is we're gonna look at what's going on with insulin throughout the day when we're eating. But we're gonna start with what was happening back in the 70s. What was so different about the 70s? Well, if you look at pictures of crowds or you look at people's yearbooks or stuff, there was very little obesity. Like I said in the other chart, obesity's just been going skyrocketing. So there was way, way less obesity back then than there is now. So what were they doing differently? I'll tell you what they weren't doing. They weren't eating kale. They weren't eating all these fancy health foods. But what they were doing is only eating 3 meals a day, and they weren't snacking. Snacking was just not normal back then. So when we're eating, they had breakfast and insulin spiked, but then there was a period before lunch and insulin went all the way back down, and then they had lunch and insulin spiked, and then there was a long period before dinner, and then they had dinner and insulin spiked, and then they usually ended up going about 12 hours at night because there was no snacking. Like I said, if dinner was finished by 7 and they didn't have breakfast till 7 the next morning, voila, 12 hours a period of no eating. So the whole thing is there's part of the day that they're storing fat and there's part of the day that they're burning fat. It was balanced out. Like I said, back then there was very low obesity. So now let's talk about what's going on with people. Oh, we need to clear out our chart and start over. Okay, so what's going on with today's standard American diet? Kind of interesting how the acronym is SAD. Okay, so what's going on with insulin throughout the day with our standard American diet? Okay, first of all, we're eating a lot more carbohydrates, which gives a higher insulin response, and a lot less fats, which actually has no insulin response. And somehow in the last so many years, we got it into our heads that we're supposed to be grazing all day. So instead of just having 3 meals a day, most people are having 3 meals a day plus 3 snacks a day. So how does that affect insulin? Well, we have our breakfast, insulin spikes, then it starts to come back down. Oh, and then we have a snack and insulin spikes. Starts to come back down. Oh, and then we have lunch and insulin spikes. Starts to come back down. Oh, and then we have a snack, insulin spikes. Then we have dinner, insulin spikes. And then we have a snack before bed and insulin spikes. So insulin is always in that fat storage mode. Now, I hate to say it, but there's something that makes it even worse. If you're obese, there's a really good chance you have something called insulin resistance. Now, I'm not going to go into what causes that right now. That's going to take an entire another video at another time, okay? But I told you that insulin's job was to pull that sugar out of the bloodstream and put it into the cells. Well, if you have insulin resistance, the body isn't doing that very well. So the body's way of dealing with that is to produce even more insulin. So instead of our chart looking like this, what happens is our chart ends up looking like this. Let's get rid of that middle part, make it look a little neater. So what's happening then when we're dieting? And we say, all right, instead of eating 2,000 calories, we're going to eat 1,500 calories. But because insulin is so high, even eating a little less, then our chart ends up looking like this. And insulin is still up there in the fat storage mode. So what that ends up doing is it's like putting a lock on the fat. So we absolutely cannot burn any of the fat. So if we're eating 1,500 calories, the body wanted to burn 2,000 calories, but there's no way of getting any calories out of the fat. We got the first law of thermodynamics, right? Calories in equals calories out. So what happens? The body then actually turns down its thermostat to burn less calories to where now it's only burning 1,500 calories a day. It actually slows down your metabolism because there just isn't anything available. That's when you have people that are dieting that say things like, "Ooh, I'm always so cold," or "I'm always so tired." Well, of course you are, because your body is actually using less energy throughout the day. And you hear a lot of people who say, "Oh, I started dieting and I started losing weight, but then I plateaued. And then I just jumped right back up. And not only did I go back up to where I was, a lot of people say, oh my God, I went back further." Well, if people are eating their 1,500 calories, not realizing that their metabolism slowed down and they've plateaued and they're not getting any success, and then they give up and go back to their 2,000 calories while their body is still only burning 1,500, then bam, of course the weight all comes back very quickly. It's just a crazy roller coaster. All right, so let's clean this up and let's talk about what happens when you're fasting. Okay, that's better. So when we're fasting, let's say we even still have that insulin resistance. To make things simple, let's say because we're fasting, we're still eating the same 1,500 calories that we did in our calorie-restricted diet. But to make the graph look simple, let's say what we're doing is we're having breakfast and lunch and then skipping dinner. This is intermittent fasting, right? So we have breakfast, our insulin spikes up. Let's say it doesn't even come all the way down to the line. We have lunch, it spikes up. But then we go the entire rest of the day without eating. So we are back to where we are in the fat burning mode. So that means that we're able to take the lock off of the fat. So now when we're eating our 1,500 calories, we're able to get 500 calories out of the fat so that our body can go back to using the 2,000 calories a day. So the body doesn't slow down the metabolism. And that's why when you talk to a lot of people like myself who've been doing intermittent fasting, they say, I'm not even hungry. Well, of course they're not. They're actually getting the 2,000 calories that their body was wanting. It just so happens that they're getting some of it from their fat and then some of it from what they're eating. Drop the mic. It works. Oh my gosh. I know that sounds silly, but really that's my understanding of why the calorie-restricted diets just doesn't work in the long run. A lot of people say they start losing weight to begin with, they plateau, they go back up, and they just can't keep it off. And as I showed in that graph before, if it really did work, how come obesity is just so incredibly rampant right now?
Hey everybody, I just want to make sure you understand calories do matter. You see, even in the fasting part of that video, there were less calories coming in than we were burning. So the important thing to remember is it doesn't matter how many calories you're taking in if your insulin doesn't get down, okay? Once that insulin does get down, then taking in less calories than you burn does actually help you lose weight. So I really just wanted to make sure you understand that. Yes, calories matter, but only if you can get your insulin down first. Thank you for joining me on my 64-pound weight loss journey. And please do me a favor, like and subscribe. See you on the next video.